This will be a review video of the Girsan MC-312. This is a 12 gauge semi-automatic, inertia driven 3.5 inch chamber shotgun that can also do 2 3/4 and 3 inch as well. It runs off of the Benelli inertia system. Well, a Benelli-like inertia system. It's copied exactly after the Benelli M2. Very smooth, very easy to operate. Controls are really good. Forearm is extremely slim, and it also takes Benelli mobile chokes. We're going to be going out and we're going to be shooting it, and we're also going to be breaking this thing down to show you what it's like on the inside. A couple of the features I like: the butt's rounded off right here, so when you're sliding it up your shoulder to shoulder the gun, it's not going to get caught on your coat. This is a somewhat hard recoil pad. That's something I'm going to change. That's something I don't like about it. But other than that, the trigger's really light, the safety is very large, and we are going to check it out here. So here's a little bit closer of a look at the Girsan MC-312. I did a couple things to it, which I do pretty much to all my shotguns. I put a bead on the front, a high-vis bead. There's a little fuzzy there on the carpet. I put a high-vis bead on the front. I put a Carlson's mid-range extended choke on it. I chopped the buttstock because I'm a kind of a shorter dude, and I adhered a different butt plate on it that's a little bit more spongy. One of the things I noticed about this gun is the stock recoil pad was really hard. So that's one of the things I didn't like about it, but I ended up modifying it just a little bit and putting that new recoil pad on it. I just got done cleaning it, so there's probably some oil seeping out of it a little bit because I like to keep my guns nice and lubed, especially in the cold. But here's a little bit of what it looks like right now, and here in a second we are going to tear her down. To start tearing it down, literally all you do is you take this off. You take your magazine cap screw off, and it starts to pull apart basically. The charging handle, all you do is you pull it out. It's pretty easy. And then you take a punch, or in my case, a small nail. You pop this pin, you push it from left to right, pull this pin out, and the trigger group comes right out. Alright, real quick, we're going to make that happen. So here's your standard parts breakdown. Like I said, all you got to do is pop that magazine cap off, and everything just kind of slides apart. You pull the bolt off, or you pull the bolt handle off, and the bolt comes out. And then you pop this one pin right here, which is that pin from left to right, and the trigger group comes out. One of the things that you'll notice about this trigger group, it's very Benelli-esque. You've got your shell release right here. The hammer is very similar. The hammer is polished, which is a very good thing, because when the bolt comes back, it actually slides over that hammer to recock it. So that's kind of a plus. These springs in here are captured by this C-clip right here with the shell elevator. And yeah, it's very, like I said, very Benelli-esque. Your safety is quite large on one side, on the side that counts. Then you've got obviously your red ring for fire. So the barrel is 27 or 28 inches long, and it's got an extension that goes all the way inside of the receiver, as opposed to some other guns where your extension is only about that long, and the receiver is actually part of, getting the shell up inside of there. With this one, you have a full extension that goes all the way down to support that 3.5 inch shell. Also, your ejector right here isn't just a piece of metal. Personally, I like the just a piece of metal, like a metal tab right here for an ejector, just for the simple fact that it's a lot simpler of a design. But with this, it is spring-loaded. It's a spring-loaded ejector. You can push that in and you can feel it. From what the factory told me, that design was built to be able to handle those 3.5-inch shells along with the 2 3/4, because it depends on how far this spring actually compresses, depends on you know, where the shell is going to eject as far as how long that shell is. Moving up to the bolt, again, very Benelli-esque. If I had my Stoger here, I'd be able to compare them as well, but I actually sold that gun for this gun. But if you look at it, I mean, it's a lot like a Benelli M2, where you have the tail that goes down into the stock right here. That can be that can be a good thing and a bad thing. One of the things that I've noticed with those types of shotguns where the spring, the action spring, is down here in the stock, this spring can get neglected in cleaning. So because of that, that spring can rust up. It can you know, bind up. It can do a lot of things in there that you know, you won't see happening, but it does get neglected. Other than that, it does really make this gun run smoothly. The other design is where you have the spring riding on the mag tube, which isn't too bad. Your Frankies and your Stogers both run it that way, and you know, it's definitely whichever way you really prefer your actions to be. With this, it will tend not to get iced up as much. If you do end up dropping the gun in water, it will shuck ice off a lot better than the small spring that's in the buttstock. So that's another plus of having the spring up here. But to tell you the truth, I have had pretty good luck with this design. Again, it's a proven design. It runs off that, you know, that same Benelli M2 Super Black Eagle design. Both those two guns have the spring in the stock, which, you know, it takes care of a lot of the bulk that has to happen up here, both in the springed guns here, and also if this was a gas gun, this forend would have to be slightly bigger, and that's one of the things I do like about this, is that forend is exceptionally skinny, which I definitely like in a gun like this. So that's just a little overview of what the parts are. Oh, also, something that these guys did other than what Benelli does, Benelli tends to put a pin here that's removable by hand, to be able to take your bolt off and then pull your cam pin out, and your firing pin, and your inertia spring that's inside of here, and all that stuff, to be able to actually pull that stuff out and clean it. But every time I did that with both either my Stogers or my Benellis, they were all fairly clean to begin with. They did not need much cleaning. So what Girsan did was they just put a roll pin in there. So it's one of those things that, you know, at the end of the year, you know, when you're done shooting for the season, you can pop that roll pin down and you know, pull out your inertia spring, your firing pin, pull this bolt head off, all that stuff, clean it, put it all back in, and not have to worry about it until next year. Honestly, it's really a non-issue for me. You know, I rarely ever took down the entire bolt bolt carrier to begin with. So again, we have the rotating locking bolt design, single extractor. These are the lugs right here and right here that it runs on inside of the receiver. So as you can tell, I have shot this thing pretty well. That's the bolt wear that's happening right there, and on the top you can see just barely right there on the top. Another thing that I do like about this gun a lot is the entire gun is Cerakoted. This is not bluing. None of this is bluing. This is all Cerakote. So one of the advantages to that is the gun's not going to rust. One of the guys that I hunt with, he just bought a brand new Benelli Super Black Eagle 3. And what happened with that gun is he put it in a wet gun case, took it out, and the entire barrel from here all the way to the tip was all the way to the muzzle was rusted. And we both kind of thought that was a little crappy. The only real bare metal on this gun that's kind of parkerized is the tail that goes down into the buttstock. That's the only thing that's actually like parked. And that's usually coated in oil anyways when you put it back together down into that buttstock. So it's really a non-issue with this being parked still. But the entirety of the gun, instead of being blued or being parkerized, which both tend to rust if you get them wet or you leave them wet for an extended period of time, the whole thing's in black Cerakote. The receiver, the aluminum receiver, is in black Cerakote. This is just bare aluminum and it's anodized black. I don't know why they did that, honestly, but it's also on the inside. The entire barrel is it's oily right now because, you know, I just got done cleaning it and I coat everything with oil anyways, but the entire barrel is Cerakoted, which is really neat. Even the inside right here, you can see where the shells have been going up and going into the gun. You can see where the Cerakote is starting to wear off, which is fine. You don't really need Cerakote on the inside anyways, but Cerakote has a natural lubricity to it, which kind of helps. And it kind of helps feed everything a little better. Also, the chamber is chrome lined. This is a 3.5-inch chamber. The chamber is chrome lined, and so is the entire bore of the shotgun. The other nice thing about this gun too is this takes Benelli Mobile chokes. So your standard kind of Benelli Mobile is kind of a standard, especially for Turkish guns, to thread their chokes in that way. So I've got my Carlson's mid-range, just a regular Carlson's mid-range choke in there, along with that high-vis sight. One of the things I did notice is the barrel. I took a mic to this thing, and I noticed that the barrel is a certain width up to about here, and then it actually widens out where the choke and the choke threads are, just slightly, ever so slightly, just a couple thousandths. And it actually, I don't know if you can really see it there. You can kind of see it there. There's the first scratch I've ever put in this gun. Right there. It's not huge, but yeah, that's the first scratch I put in it. But the barrel, you can tell, it definitely widens out a little bit to the choke area. So they kind of wanted that choke area to be reinforced for your threads and, you know, to add a little bit of extra rigidity to it. The markings on the vent rib to lessen your glint on it is they're very big and they're very deep. That's one of the things. I wish they would have made the checkering just slightly smaller on the vent rib, but it's something I can deal with. It's really not that bad. So that's the gun in its entirety and all of its parts. So yeah, just giving you a little bit of a look, and we'll be back with you here in a second. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to try and put this gun back together. I've got my daughter holding the camera for me to help me out a little bit here. So the first thing I try to do is I try to put the bolt in the receiver first. Alright, because it's a little harder to line up this tail right here with the spring plunger that's back in here with the trigger group in. Alright, so first and foremost, we want to grab the receiver, and if you notice, there's little tabs right there, and that's what these little rails go into. So we're going to stick that in there. We're going to stick the bolt in. There we go. We're going to stick the bolt in. You see how it goes into those tabs? Now here's the tail. We're going to line up the tail with this plunger. With this plunger down here. Okay, so line up the tail with the plunger. And see how it goes in right there? Alright, that's what we want to do. Then we want to make sure that the bolt is retained inside of the receiver. So we are going to take our bolt handle, our charging handle, we're going to put it in, and that's going to retain the bolt and keep it from flopping out. Alright, now if you do that, you got to line up there. You got to reline it up again. But see how everything runs nice and smoothly. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take our trigger group and our pin. So we got our trigger group and our pin. Back up a little bit. Okay. I'm going to set my pin down first for a second. I'm going to take my trigger group. I'm going to put it in from the back to the front. All right. Make sure that your hammer was cocked. Then I'm going to push on my bolt release. All right. I'm going to push on my bolt release, and my trigger group is going to fall right into place. All right. Now I'm going to look right there. I can see daylight through there, which means I'm all lined up. I'm going to take my pin, push it in, and it's in. Now, my bolt is put together. Now, I'm going to set this down for a second because I've got to do something that's a little different. All right, I've got to put my fore end on to my barrel. And the way you do that is, here, Autumn, let's push this up just a little bit. There we go. The way we do that is we slide it on, we push forward, and then it sits right behind this little lip right there. So if I pull it off, okay, see that? Now I'm going to push forward. It's going to sit behind that little lip, just like that. Then the bolt can be forward or it can be back. It doesn't matter a whole lot. So I'm going to push it. I'm going to push the extension into the receiver, slam it shut. There it is. All right, then I'm going to make sure. Yeah, I see that. I'm going to take my sling. I'm going to take my sling cap, and I'm going to put it right there. And I'm going to screw that on. Now, I've got my duct plug, and the nice part about it is, I don't know where I put it, but I've got to go get it out here in a little bit because I don't want to put this thing together without it. But your duct plug, all it does is it just slides straight into the front, which is kind of sweet. You don't have to pull off this cap like you do on a Benelli or a Stoger or anything like that. You just put it on there. There's a little top hat that sits right there, and you stick your magazine tube cap right on top, and there, it is done. You can see all my oil spots from my fingers, but there we go. She's all done. There you go, guys. Thanks for watching.